Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have another cool strap review for you from a new brand to the channel, Strap Mill Canada, or SMC. They're of course based out of Canada, and they were just recently established back in 2017. Basically, their kind of focus is making the type of straps, of course, that they couldn't find for themselves. So that's a lot of people's motivation for kind of why they get into this industry, and I think that's that's definitely something that's admirable and more common now. You see this, there's a lot of brands that are started by enthusiasts, and so it's nice to have somebody that's in here that's kind of course passion being a driving force versus just, hey, some entrepreneur who maybe saw a space in the market and tried to fill that space. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom out, and get these bad boys in hand. Alright, so as you can see, our two kind of models that we'll be using is this nice Bauhaus inspired Laco, and then of course the Stova Flieger Classic. So what I'll do is we'll take a look at the straps, we'll get the things on wrist and everything, and then we'll switch over the watch heads onto the other straps and get a look at those fully loaded. But with that said, let's actually first start out with this Seatbelt Nato, which is very nice and quite handsome. It is available in 20 and 22 millimeter width options, and the length is 11 inches, so not super long. So I'm sure for me and my 7¼ inch wrist, we'll definitely put that to the test when we try it on later on to see how much tail that's left for tucking. For me, I'd rather have it kind of be a full 12-13 inches and have more tail left, or something shorter, and depending on basically where the configuration on the keepers and everything will kind of decide how much tail is left. I prefer either to be long enough to have some tail to fold back in, or short enough to just have it actually basically kept nice and tidy without any folding. So something like that, overhanging, wouldn't be bad for me. But I just figured give you guys a closer look at the material here. Very handsome. As far as the hardware goes, pretty standard setup, no floating keeper or anything like that, but you are seeing the very nice tight weave there, very detailed, heat sealed as far as the holes go. So really nice vibrant color, but still also a nice dark tone, so it plays with the light. It gives you almost that kind of a metallic sheen to it, which is nice. Now, as far as this vulcanized rubber strap here go, I was actually very pleasantly surprised with this. When I first kind of saw it, I thought it was going to be more of like a silicone kind of style, but this is like actually really high quality vulcanized rubber. And as you can see, it doesn't pick up dust, like basically it's easily wiped off, which is something that you can't necessarily get with silicone, except this is actually quite detailed. I'm really loving the air grooves in here, which will help wick out some moisture. Also, you can see that it does have the contoured holes there, which is really nice, and it shows you kind of the depth of this, but the feel on it is really, really great. Essentially, these are offered in 20, 22, and 24 width options. The short end is 75 millimeters, while the longer end is 130 millimeters. These are about 3 millimeters thick throughout, and then there's essentially a 2 millimeter taper on these. So if you have a lug width of 20 like we have here, on this end it's going to be 18. If you have 22, it's going to be 20. If you have 24, it'll be 22. So very nice. Nothing too dramatic with the taper there, so I think it should be a crowd pleaser. But I'm really surprised by the quality on this, just because of the pricing. Wasn't bad at all, especially considering that you are able to purchase these in in Canadian dollars and actually save a nice little bit of money there. I'm actually noticing that my notes don't have the pricing listed here, which I guess isn't too important anyway because it's all listed in Canadian and you would have to convert. But I'm going to leave a link down in the comments, in the description, so you guys can actually see whatever the latest pricing is. And all of these were definitely, you know, I think this was probably the most expensive strap out of these, but honestly, considering what this compares to, if you compare it to like a natural rubber Hirsch strap, those go for a lot more. So really a nice little deal on this. I'm looking forward to getting this on the wrist and you know, attached to one of these watch heads here, probably the Stoa. So moving on to the Crazy Horse leather, essentially that's these two, but then there's just different color options. But essentially the way they work is, of course, again, to kind of cover the availability, you got the 20 millimeter lug width or 22. It's 75 millimeters on the short end, and then you're gonna have 120 millimeters on the long side, 3 millimeters thick, also with the 2 millimeter taper. So the 18, it's going to be basically, I'm sorry, 20 millimeters here, tapering down to 18, or 22 tapering down to 20. So really nice from that standpoint. So this actual color is the red oak, which is a deep red, kind of like a vintage faded ox blood. And the nice thing is, because of this color and the finish on here, it basically, you know, it's almost like a patina ready strap. Like it's just gonna pick up, you know, the different oils, the different, you know, different wear marks, and it's actually going to look really nice. And it's not about looking pristine, it just picks up character lines and tones really, really nicely. And I think it actually does complement the silver dial here really well. So the nice thing about seeing it on this Laco is, of course, there's tons of other Bauhaus inspired watches, and you can kind of get a good look at this, or even just a light dialed watch, how it will play off of this strap. And of course, you know, I think this is really a fine color, and really plays with this, especially with the blued hands. It really plays nicely. Then we look here at this color way, which is the ash blue, which is really a deep gray with kind of a bluish tone, similar almost to an Admiralty gray like you'd find on kind of vintage NATOs. And again, it has that same finish here because it's from that same line of that Crazy Horse kind of waxed saddle leather. So it does have, with that layer of wax, it just gives it life, I feel like, and character and color lines, and just it just picks everything up really, really nicely. One thing I will say is I feel like the keepers are a bit thin. I mean, I haven't had any issues with them, but as far as just like looks and feeling of security, I feel like they could be thicker. It's kind of a love-hate thing, because I'm actually like, whenever these are really thick, they just feel like they feel a bit floppy and oversized. Like this actually feels really quite like proportionate, but maybe I'm just not used to keepers being this thin. It's something I'll probably have to get over after wearing over a period of time. But you know, while this is attached on the watch head, let me actually get it on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, so you guys can take a look at how it's gonna go. So as far as sizing goes, I can get it basically the second hole. So if you have a bigger than a 7 1/4 inch wrist, if you're going 7.5 and above, you know, you might not have enough strap here for you. But I believe they actually do offer other lengths, so definitely check that out on their site. But as you can see, let me scoot these over. Looks really, really nice. I'm loving this tone, especially on this Flieger watch. Because of course, you, with the blue tones kind of in this gray, you do also have the play with the blued hands, which do pop. So really, really nice from that standpoint. Wears nice. And this isn't really broken in at all. It's actually really quite supple just out of the box. So quite impressive from that standpoint. Let's go ahead and actually get this off now and throw on this red oak strap here. As you can see, again, although the stitching is a bit different as far as the aesthetic, the leather style and everything is really where the family kind of shares its roots. And yeah, again, I think that looks great. Of course, my skin's a bit darker, so for me, I'm digging kind of the contrast there. So I mean, I'm normally wearing black straps or grays, blues. So it's really nice to kind of have a red that isn't super overly vibrant. You know, that's going to be something that's really loud and sporty looking. To me, this looks very sedate and classy, and would really pair well with, you know, and anything with just a little pop of color. So really nice. And then also the nice thing is, let's say you have another watch that just has a pop of red on it, maybe a red line text, something like that. It could be really nice to tie in. But I do enjoy the contrast that you're seeing here. And again, everything, it's like it's wrapping around the wrist really nicely. It's not super thick or anything, so they didn't have to really kind of taper the thickness down, because at 3 millimeters thick, it's already decently thick, which is nice for support in this area. But sometimes you'll see straps thin out down here. In this case, it's actually supple enough that it still feels super comfortable even with no kind of thickness taper there. So really, really nice. So with that said, let's actually switch these watches out and get them on these other straps and take a closer look. Okay, all switched out. Really quick, while we have these actually off strap, I'll give you a chance to kind of get a closer look actually at the details on the ends here that were a little bit obscured when actually mounted onto the watch head. So really nice, very tight, nicely finished. I mean, everything is fully sealed and finished. So definitely a really great feeling of completion and kind of just an overall level of fit and finish that I think you'd expect from a much more expensive strap. And it's really nice to see that available here on these. So really, really cool. And then a closer look, of course, at this bluish gray tone. Different in the stitching, as you can see, but still that same type of feel, super pliable. Underneath, you're going to see here, we have it signed. It does have the logo and then also the width. So if you store these in a bag or something like that, you can easily tell which size is which and get it back on to the wrist or on watch. And then you can also see the sign buckles, very cleanly executed, milled here, and then with just the only part that's kind of stamped being this finger here. So with that said, let's go ahead and start with the NATO. As you can see here, really nice on this wonderful Bauhaus inspired piece from Laco. So let's go ahead and run that through. Okay. Alrighty, is that what I like to do is kind of when I set the keeper into the hole, what I like to do is get a little bit of wrist movement here to make sure it's not too tight or too loose. And in this case, so I feel like that, yeah, there's still a bit more tongue than I would want, but not quite enough tongue to actually fold back over, as you can see. So maybe I would go one tighter here and have a little bit more tongue, as you can see. But what I would probably end up doing would be just to fold it backwards in, because it's not going to have enough length there, at least for me and my wrist. If you have a smaller wrist, it'll be totally fine for you. But as you can see here, it's pretty easy fix. You just go ahead and run it back through there, just inwards instead of outwards. Holds together really well. Nice fit and finish, and as you can see, complements these thermally blued hands really well on the Laco. So really cool. Now, with that said, we'll go ahead and move on to what I've been really looking forward to, is kind of the surprise strap that came in this little care package from Strap Mill Canada, is this really, really cool rubber strap. So as you can see, it does have contours built in, which is really great. So it's going to hold the wrist and really hold its shape really nicely. And then as you can see here, you're going to have nice air pockets. And this, you'll notice also that it has space for toolless spring bars, which is really cool. I didn't have any on hand, but I thought that's definitely something worth to mention if you saw the little holes there and you were wondering. So as far as the hardware goes, it's definitely adequate, nothing to write home about, but not really lacking in any sense either. Even the middle finger here, as you can see, is fully milled, which is a nice touch. So let's go ahead and get this on here. So as you can see, it has extra length in comparison to the leather models, of course, because you might want to maybe throw it over a dive suit or something. But as you can see, oh man, that thing is just so comfortable. The nice thing is it doesn't have to bend here, which is something that in a flat, a flat strap, it will have to bend, right? There's going to be some level of bend that has to happen for it to wrap around your wrist. The nice thing is here, it's actually contoured. So the strap itself isn't in any pressure to have this curvature. It's actually worked into it. So that just makes it sit on the wrist super nice. So there's like no pressure on the sides of my wrist to hold this in place. It is really just doing that with the shape, provided kind of the natural shape here. And it's not super thick, but it definitely feels very nice and solid. So I think it's actually a really clean match. I gotta say, this one's kind of the dark horse little surprise with how impressed I am. I might end up having this be the strap that I probably will wear most out of this kind of grouping here, because it's just super nice, super versatile, very plain, as you can see. And as I mentioned earlier, these are available in different widths, which is nice. So if you want to put this on a big diver or something, as a Seiko with a 22 millimeter lug, or something even a Panerai size at 24 millimeters, you can definitely get that, which I think is really cool. So it does have that great vulcanized rubber, so that's pretty impressive. Some closing thoughts. These are really, I'm almost to the point where I would say it's surprisingly good. That's how good the quality is. Like I'm surprisingly impressed. I had a certain expectation of what straps are kind of in this price range. When you start thinking about, under $30 US, you have kind of an expectation of what the quality of those straps are. So I've been, damn near blown away by these straps, and as far as like what you're getting for the money. So that's pretty cool. And then of course, if you're in the US, the conversion from Canadian dollars to US dollars is always a nice little built-in discount there. Really, I'd say the bottom line is you're getting a premium quality product without the expected premium markup, which I think is great. So these, of course, there are things that design-wise could be better, but as far as execution goes, these things are pretty on point, especially when you consider the price point. It's pretty, I mean, the way this sits on the wrist is absolutely amazing. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to throw this strap on a bunch of other watches, but I think the nice thing is it does suit this here because of that nice, matte black dial. Really plays the same way with the light as this matte black strap there. So that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.